My pastor shared this with us today, and I would like to share it with you all. He called it the progression of sin. And it came from Psalms 1:1 and Psalms 1:3. He said to share it with students and educators, but it's so good. I think everyone should see it or hear it. Let's start with Psalms 1:1. It says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful." We are in this world, but we are not of this world. We have been called to be set apart. Our walk, our stance, our sitting should be different. Walking with God is a step-by-step process. It's a daily thing. We begin to veer away from the things that we should do that will help us to continue to walk with God. We begin to go places and do things that are not of God, that is not what God says for us to do. That's when we start the progression of sin. Because when we start walking in the wrong way, before we know it, our stance change. When I'm saying stance, I meant the things that we stand on. Instead of standing on what's right, those things begin to change. What we believe and what we stand for begin to change. And before you know it, we become complacent. That means we're sitting. When we're sitting, we're not sitting to pray. We're not sitting to read our word. We're not sitting to testify and witness of God. We're sitting and we become complacent and begin to do the things of the world. But we know that Jesus came to save us from sin. So that progression of sin, because of Jesus, can be turned around. So let's turn that walking, standing, and sitting around. And we begin to sit and learn of God. We begin to sit so that we can read and study our word and begin to know more about what God would have us to do. And then as we begin to sit and study, we find that we begin to change the way we think. Our stance, our standing, what we believe and what we stand on begins to change. We begin to stand up for God, begin to stand up for what's right, and then we begin to walk and testify of His goodness. When we do those things, when we stop that progression of sin and begin to change, if you look at Psalms 1:3, it says, "He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bring forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper." Change that progression of sin. Begin to do the things that God has called you to do, and I promise you,